Beliefs shape behavior, expanded section. The way we think determines the way we act. Our beliefs, whether conscious or subconscious, are the invisible forces steering every decision we make. They shape how we see the world, how we respond to challenges, and ultimately, what we achieve. Think about someone who believes they are destined for failure. Every setback they face reinforces that belief. They tell themselves, I knew it, I'm not good enough. So they stop trying. They don't put themselves in situations where they might succeed because their belief tells them it's pointless. It's not the failure that holds them back. It's their belief about what failure means. Now, contrast that with someone who believes that failure is just feedback, a stepping stone to growth. When they face a setback, they don't take it as a sign to stop. They take it as a lesson. They adjust, adapt, and move forward. The experience is the same. The interpretation is what changes. And that interpretation is driven by belief. Our beliefs are often shaped long before we realize it. They come from childhood experiences, the words of parents or teachers, cultural norms, even casual remarks from people we trust. Over time, we start treating these beliefs as facts. But here's the truth. They are not facts. They are simply perspectives. Perspectives that can be challenged, questioned, and changed. Consider the stories of great innovators, leaders, and disruptors. Every single one of them had to challenge a belief at some point, whether it was the belief that a certain industry couldn't change, that a particular goal was impossible, or even that they weren't the kind of person who could make a difference. Breaking free from limiting beliefs was the first step toward making an impact. And this isn't just about success. It applies to every area of love. A person who believes they are unworthy of love will push away good relationships. Someone who believes they are naturally bad at something, math, public speaking, leadership, will avoid opportunities to improve. The belief comes first, the behavior follows. What's fascinating is that this process also works in reverse. Change a belief, and the behavior changes automatically. When someone starts to believe they are capable, they take more risks. When they believe they are worthy, they set higher standards. When they believe change is possible, they start making different choices. The challenge is that most people never stop to examine their beliefs. They go through life operating on outdated programming, never realizing that the thing holding them back isn't reality. It's the story they tell themselves about reality. And until that story changes, their actions will stay the same. Question your assumptions. The expanded section, most of us navigate life on autopilot, making decisions based on assumptions we don't even realize we're carrying. These assumptions act like invisible scripts running in the background of our minds, telling us what is possible, what is not, what we should do, and what we shouldn't. But have we ever stopped to ask why we believe what we believe? Think about this. How many things in your life do you accept as just the way things are? The way you work, the way you interact with people, the way you define success, the way you view yourself. So much of what we think is truth is really just a collection of assumptions we've picked up along the way. And assumptions, by their very nature, go unquestioned. We rarely pause to examine them because they feel like reality. But the moment we challenge them, we start to see new possibilities. History is filled with examples of people who questioned assumptions and changed the world because of it. For centuries, people assumed that human flight was impossible. It was just an accepted fact. Then the Wright brothers came along and asked, what if that assumption is wrong? Every major innovation, every breakthrough, every disruptive idea started with someone who refused to accept things as they were. But questioning assumptions isn't just for inventors and entrepreneurs. It's something we all need to do in every area of our lives. Think about how often we assume things about ourselves. We assume we're not good enough, not smart enough, not capable enough. We assume that success is for other people, that certain doors will never open for us. We assume that because we've always been a certain way, we can't change. But are these really facts? Or are they just untested beliefs we've never challenged? We also make assumptions about other people. We assume we know their intentions, their thoughts, their struggles. We assume we understand why they act the way they do. And these assumptions shape the way we treat them. But what if we're wrong? How many misunderstandings, conflicts, and missed opportunities come from assumptions we never took the time to question? Even in our work, we operate under assumptions that limit our potential. We assume that things must be done a certain way because that's how they've always been done. We assume that certain problems are unsolvable, that certain risks are too great, that we are stuck with the system we've inherited. But what if those assumptions are the very thing holding us back? Challenging assumptions doesn't mean rejecting everything outright. It means being willing to step back and ask, is this really true? It means replacing blind acceptance with curiosity. It means understanding that just because something feels right doesn't mean it is right. And that's where real growth begins. Change is one of the most fundamental aspects of life, yet it's also one of the most difficult things for us to embrace. No matter how much we talk about growth, improvement, and progress, when faced with real change, we hesitate. We overthink. We retreat into what's familiar, even when we know deep down that staying the same is no longer serving us. Why does this happen? Because the human brain is wired to resist change. From an evolutionary standpoint, predictability meant survival. If something was familiar, it was safe. If something was unknown, it could be dangerous. Our ancestors relied on this instinct to avoid threats in the wild, but today this same instinct is what keeps us trapped in unfulfilling jobs, unhealthy relationships, and limiting beliefs. Fear of change is not a personal weakness, it's biology. When faced with uncertainty, the brain triggers a stress response, flooding our system with doubt and hesitation. We start imagining worst-case scenarios. We cling to what we know, even if what we know is holding us back. It's why people stay in jobs they don't love, why they resist new ideas, why they hesitate to take risks that could change their lives. But here's what's even more fascinating. Our fear of change is often not about the change itself, it's about the fear of loss. Every change, no matter how positive, involves leaving something behind. It could be an old habit, a familiar environment, a way of thinking, or even a sense of identity. And letting go is uncomfortable. Even when we know something isn't working for us, at least it's known. The unknown is what scares us. We tell ourselves, what if I fail? What if this new path is worse? What if I'm not good enough? These are not rational thoughts, they are defense mechanisms. Our minds would rather stay in an uncomfortable situation than risk stepping into the unknown. And so we rationalize our fear, convincing ourselves that now is not the right time, that we need more preparation, that we should wait for the perfect moment. The irony is that the more we resist change, the more it controls us. When we avoid change, we don't stay in the same place. We fall behind. The world keeps moving forward, and we're left standing still. And often the very thing we fear, the discomfort of change, is temporary, while the consequences of avoiding it can last a lifetime. When we think about transformation, we often picture massive, sweeping changes, overnight success, dramatic reinvention, sudden breakthroughs. But in reality, the biggest changes in life don't happen all at once. They happen gradually, through a series of small shifts that compound over time. Every major success story, every great achievement, every remarkable transformation can be traced back to a single, seemingly insignificant decision. A choice to wake up a little earlier, a decision to speak up in a meeting, a moment of courage that sets off a chain reaction. At the time, these choices don't feel groundbreaking. They feel small, almost inconsequential. But when repeated consistently, they reshape the trajectory of our lives. Consider someone who wants to become healthier. If they try to change everything overnight, cut out all junk food, hit the gym 7 days a week, overhaul their entire lifestyle, they will likely burn out in a matter of weeks. But if they start with small, manageable changes, drinking more water, walking a little each day, making slightly better food choices, those shifts build momentum. Over time, they create a new normal, and before they know it, they've completely transformed their health. This applies to everything: our careers, our relationships, our mindset. Success is not the result of one giant leap. It's the product of many small steps taken consistently. It's easy to overlook these steps because they don't produce immediate results. When we don't see instant change, we assume nothing is happening. But behind the scenes, small efforts are stacking up. Think about how a plane that is just 1 degree off course will end up in an entirely different destination over time. The same principle applies to our lives. A tiny shift in the way we think, the way we work, the way we interact with others. These changes may seem insignificant in the moment, but their impact grows exponentially. The challenge is that small shifts require patience. We live in a world that celebrates instant results. We want quick fixes, overnight transformations, immediate success. But real, lasting change happens in the moments when no one is watching. When we choose to push a little harder, to think a little differently, to show up consistently, even when it feels like progress is slow. The power of small shifts lies in their sustainability. Big, dramatic changes are hard to maintain. But small, consistent actions become habits. And habits, once ingrained, shape our future without requiring constant effort. The key is not to wait for the perfect moment to make a massive change. It's to start where you are with what you have and take the first small step. The people we spend the most time with shape our thoughts, influence our decisions, and ultimately determine the trajectory of our lives. Whether we realize it or not, our environment plays a critical role in our growth or our stagnation. If we surround ourselves with people who challenge us, inspire us, and push us to become better, we naturally rise to a higher standard. But if we spend time with people who resist change, complain, and settle for mediocrity, we unconsciously adopt their mindset as well. Psychologists call this social contagion. The idea that behaviors, attitudes, and even emotions are contagious. If you've ever been around someone who constantly complains, you know how easy it is to start complaining too. Likewise, when you're around people who are driven, optimistic, and focused on growth, their energy influences you in ways you may not even notice. Think about the most successful, fulfilled people in the world. They didn't get there alone. They had mentors who guided them, peers who challenged them, and friends who supported their journey. No one reaches their full potential in isolation. Growth happens when we are surrounded by people who encourage us to think bigger, take risks, and push past our limitations. But here's the challenge. Many of us stay in environments that hold us back because they are familiar. We remain in circles where ambition is met with skepticism, where new ideas are dismissed, where success is seen as luck rather than effort. And over time, without realizing it, we start lowering our standards to fit in. Changing your environment doesn't mean cutting people out of your life completely, but it does mean being intentional about who has the greatest influence on you. It means finding people who inspire you, who challenge your thinking, who support your growth, even when it makes them uncomfortable. It means seeking out mentors who have been where you want to go, learning from those who are ahead of you, and surrounding yourself with people who push you to be better, not just those who keep you comfortable. Growth-minded people operate differently. They don't see failure as an endpoint. They see it as part of the process. They don't fear change, they embrace it. They don't get stuck in negativity. They focus on solutions. When you're around people like this, your perspective shifts. Suddenly, what once seemed impossible starts to feel achievable. The limits you placed on yourself begin to fade. You start thinking bigger, taking bolder action, and believing in your own potential in ways you never did before. We often think that belief comes first, that we need to feel confident before we take action, that we need to be certain before we begin. But in reality, the opposite is true. Belief doesn't lead to action. Action leads to belief. Think about how confidence is built. No one is born confident. No one wakes up one day suddenly believing they are capable, strong, or worthy. Confidence is earned through experience. It's the result of taking action, seeing progress, and proving to ourselves that we are capable of more than we thought. The problem is, many people wait. They wait until they feel ready. They wait for certainty, for the perfect moment, for the fear to disappear. But that moment never comes, because belief doesn't develop in stillness. It develops in motion. Consider someone who wants to be a great public speaker. They might spend years reading books, watching TED Talks, studying techniques, but until they actually get on stage, they will never truly believe they can do it. The first time will be uncomfortable. They will feel nervous, maybe even doubt themselves. But the moment they step off that stage, they will have proof they did it. And that single experience, no matter how imperfect, will strengthen their belief that they can do it again. This applies to everything in life. A person who believes they are bad at socializing will only change that belief by engaging in more conversations. Someone who doubts their ability to lead will only become a leader by stepping up, even when they feel unprepared. It's not about feeling ready, it's about acting despite the doubt, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty. And the most powerful thing about action is that it creates momentum. The hardest part of any journey is getting started, but once we take that first step, the next one becomes easier. Our mind starts to shift. The doubts that once seemed overwhelming start to lose their grip. We begin to see ourselves differently, and over time, the actions we take shape the identity we believe in. Many people think they need to fake it till they make it, but that's not quite right. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about proving to yourself through action that you already are. If you want to be disciplined, act with discipline. If you want to be courageous, take courageous action. If you want to be successful, do the things successful people do. The more we act, the more we reinforce our beliefs. The more we reinforce our beliefs, the easier it becomes to take action. It's a cycle, but it starts with a choice, not to wait, not to overthink, but to take the first step, no matter how small.